Hello, everyone, and welcome to this hangout on practical self-empowerment, wherein we'll be discussing high sensitivity and what it means to be a highly or overly sensitive person in this world. So we'll also briefly be having a look at the term high sensitivity and the fact that it's been coming up as a term that feels like psychology, therapy, and coaching use to try and diagnose or place a label on what many people are experiencing inside of themselves and going through when they feel very sensitive. So this condition of being very sensitive is worth having a look into so that we can, understand what it is exactly and how it develops. And so we can look at, what real solutions are out there that will assist you as a highly sensitive person to not only understand what this high sensitivity is that you're dealing with, but also, being able to work with it in a way that's best for you. So with me is our guest, Ingrid Schaefer. Hi, Ingrid.
Hi, Kim. Hi, everyone.
So Ingrid, you have in your life so far experienced and defined yourself as being a sensitive person. Could you tell us a bit more about what that means for you and what that meant for you to be a sensitive person?
Yes, experienced for sure. More later in life. I have experienced it physically, so I had to take care of my body physically. For the food, I have to take care to see what I eat. I have actually, through most of my working time, noticed that I am better doing when I work 3.5 days a week outside, and for the rest also have days at home. So not the whole week fully planned with all activities outside, things like that, and without little time to be home by myself again. And I have experienced myself becoming more and more emotional, sensitive, so to speak. And that also, for example, played out that if someone asked me how I was, that I could start crying, or when things like that. And because I didn't want that always, I was more being on myself, and needed time alone, so to speak, more time alone than I maybe would like to have. That's a bit how I experienced it for, what is it, about 10 years. It was not all my life, it was later in life. So before I had pretty much planned a lot. So it's more divided into two parts. We can come back on that more later. Has that answered your question a bit?
Yeah, definitely. So it's interesting that it was like an entire sensitivity in your body, physically, as well as in your mind, emotionally and mentally.
Yes. And they start interacting on each other. So that is, and I noticed that was happening, but I didn't really understand how it happened. So because the body becomes more sensitive, I emotionally started reacted to that. And because I emotionally started reacted to that, my body did become more sensitive. But I didn't see how, and I didn't really see how to work with that, how to stop that, how to direct myself in it. So it accumulated actually through the years. That may also be why it became later in life for me more visible. That I yeah, experience myself as sensitive.
Yeah. So could you maybe give one or two practical examples just so that people can more relate to, the experience that you're referring to? Can you maybe give just a few examples of how this sensitivity would play out in, how you respond to yourself, your mind, your body, or other people and your environment?
Let's see. I have an example of an accumulated emotional state. It was, for example, when I arrived at the farm in South Africa. It was now three years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. And already in the beginning, we were sitting in a kitchen, and we just arrived, and there were sitting more people, and I needed to walk outside, and I started crying because I was actually emotionally overwhelmed, also because we had traveled 1 or 2 days, also because of all the tension that had built up through all the years, and I could not relax. And I also noticed that it is more coming up when I know that people are looking a bit further to each other. So not, hey, how are you doing? Talking about the weather and go, but more if I was with people who are, looking at each other, seeing into each other, taking care of each other, like looking a bit further than the small conversations that you have at the store, for example. And yeah, that's one example where I just started crying, for example, and I knew it was really accumulated emotions. And I couldn't really name what was going on. It was just everything built up that in that moment came out. That is one example of the emotions accumulated. And another example is I'm not so good if we plan, for example, 5 activities at one day. So first we go to the store. 1 hour later we have a coffee somewhere else, and so you have 5 activities in 5 different places, and we have to run and to go, and there's no time to make the food, and well, that's really exhausting. I experienced that. That's exhausting because there's no time to, what is it? Maybe also because there's no time then to make food, and that brings me to the physical sensitivity that also that accumulated. I could not digest everything easily, so I also have to take time to prepare meals, to take it with me, to have the food that I can digest with me. So I cannot go all day out without looking forward to what I should eat at such a day, and just grasp something that is available. So I also need the time to plan that, for example. So that are a few examples that I need to take care of, or actually the last one I need to take care of. The others are, well, we come back to that. They are, they're becoming better.
Okay. Cool. I'm sure that, many people will be able to kind of relate to those experiences of being physically sensitive, but also being, sensitive on an emotional level, and maybe not necessarily knowing where it's all coming from, and like feeling overwhelmed by it when it comes up.
Yes.
So, Ingrid, did you, in your life, with, facing this experience, did you read any books about it or gather any information in your reality to try and make sense of or understand what you were going through exactly. And you know, did you then feel that the information that you did gather and the things you read about, you know, being a sensitive person did in fact help you and assist you to be able to deal with that sensitivity?
For the physical sensitivity, I started pretty early to investigate the food, investigate natural medicine. It's also my education. And there I learned to approach each body actually on an individual way. So, and there you have also divided in people who are more sensitive in the body, who are less sensitive in the body. And so there I found a lot of support physically, and also understanding, and also support to not label actually people in such diseases actually, but more in conditions, for example, and constitutions.
So where did you learn about these physical kind of ways of dealing with your body? Or can you mention any specific sources that you came in contact with?
It was my education, so it was my school, HBO school, for 6 years.
So what did you study?
Natural medicine.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and to not, of course, everyone can go study natural medicine. So when you don't do that, then you go to a therapist, for example, who has studied natural medicine to find the support, the physical support. And later, when I experienced the sensitivity more also on an emotional level, and actually when I was going more into introspection and being more on myself alone, because also of being more sensitive and needed more time alone. I think I read one book about really high sensitivity, and there I recognized pretty much about myself, and also not the whole picture, because they are also, for example, talking a lot about how we as a child are or can also be high sensitive, and what the signs are and the behavior, and that I never experienced myself. But I'm not sure if that is because it may be suppressed emotions. I never learned how to deal with emotions, to speak about emotions, to express emotions, to understand emotions. So it was not really a part that was openly discussed. I think nobody in my family really knew how to deal with it, so it was more a bit left aside, you can say. And so it might be suppressed. And what I'm also looking at, because when I was reading about it, I was, I think, in my 30s, and at that time the term high sensitivity came up, and 30 years ago it was not here. So it was not mentioned as such, and yeah, that might be a part of it. Why, as a child, I'm not sure if it is developed later in life. I think that's also part of it, really accumulation of it, or that I did not recognize it as a child. But that was the reason why I never really defined myself as high sensitive, but more as, okay, I'm sensitive. I do not really recognize the high part. So, but I do really recognize a lot in it. So that was what about, yeah, that was more where I was in that with regards to high sensitivity.
Yeah, so basically you found that in terms of the emotional and the mental information that you found in relation to high sensitivity, it didn't really like resonate to, you know, what you saw inside of yourself, specifically in your childhood.
Not in my childhood, and later it's, yeah, I recognized it, but then it did not so much give more information how to live with it than I already did, because I already learned to take time for myself, to take time to find out what food I could have and things like that, to take it more slow, so to speak. So it gives a direction about, yeah, how to live with the high sensitivity, but it does not give a total insight in what it actually contains and how it I don't know the Dutch word. Well, how in what it contains, to give a really understanding of what is happening inside.
Like how it exists, the whole kind of design of it inside of yourself.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as you mentioned that point of, you know, 30 years ago, high sensitivity didn't exist. It's actually interesting because at some point in my teenage years, I also read a book about high sensitivity, and, you know, a book which was titled, I think, Are You a High Sensitive Person or something? We might have even read the same book. And, you know, at that point, I did also experience myself as being quite sensitive. But looking back on, you know, my childhood years, I might have also been sensitive. However, simply because of the fact that my environment didn't recognize it as such, you know, I also wouldn't have thought of myself as being a sensitive person. So therefore, you know, it could have, as you said, also just have been suppressed.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes.
So that's pretty interesting. You know, how a concept can like come up and all of a sudden, you know, people go, oh, I'm a highly sensitive person. Suddenly this is like who you are. Like at the time for me, I kind of thought, okay, that's maybe who I am.
Yes.
When, you know, it's like, it isn't necessarily so, because it's just this book who's now basically kind of telling you who you are or who you could be, that you then kind of identify yourself with. But, you know, that's kind of on the side, quite an interesting point.
Yes.
So Ingrid, how did you then eventually end up assisting yourself to, you know, walk through this experience and empower yourself?
For the physical part is mostly with the natural medicine, and well, that's very wide. I have not tried. What is it? I went to different kind of therapies, and because I had studied in that area, I knew how to find my way in it and where to go if I had some physical sensitivity, so to speak, that I needed to support. And they had become pretty bad. So because also it accumulated. And so I really needed to support myself in that. But I also knew that I would not find the support in the traditional medicine, because there is not such treatments for, let's say, the more sensitive, symptoms. They are more in a later state, that there is then that one goes to the traditional medicine. So I use the traditional medicine to make a diagnose, so that I didn't miss any serious illness, for example, or And then when that was all fine, I found my way in the natural medicine. That was the physical support. And of course, I also looked for the emotional support, and I find some things that did give support, but it all the time it didn't give the whole picture. So I didn't come to a really understanding of the interaction between the mind and the body, for example. And I noticed that that was there because it was every day happening, but I didn't see how. And in that part, the most support I found for myself when I started walking the journey to life within Desteni. And there I also found the understanding actually of how the mind and the body is related. For example, how a mind consciousness system works, what emotions actually are, and how they get stored within the body if we are not directing them, or like we mentioned, if we have very much suppressed it when we were a child, and that accumulated, of course, over time. So within that, through now 4 years walking, I stabilized myself emotionally, yeah, really a lot. So I am not finding myself anymore going somewhere and start crying because I'm emotionally overwhelmed, for example. That's already now for a longer time that it's not happening. And I have, of course, it is getting less, but days at home when I still have sensitivity within my body, for example, and I have some emotions to investigate or react to it, but it's not an accumulation where I suddenly burst in tears when someone asks me, how do you feel, for example. So it's yeah. And I more and more noticed that actually what I really needed was understanding of how I function. Otherwise, I cannot support myself. And I cannot, for example, when another asks me how I feel, how I am, I cannot explain things. And another does also not understand, so that's also accumulated. So I do not understand myself. I get the misunderstanding of another on it. And that was bothering myself a lot, because then one is also easily, I felt easily labeled like a weak person or an emotional person, or it's not going, oh, she's not doing well, things like that. Doing well, okay, she's not doing well, you know, things like that. That's not a nice, yeah, I didn't like that, to come out with that all the time.
Yeah. Cool. So in terms of, my next question was going to be, were there any gifts or expressions that you found in this journey of empowering yourself in your sensitivity? So basically one of those gifts would be that you now no longer burst into an emotional reaction, basically.
Yes, you mean invoking this journey to life, so to speak. Yes,
Yes.
that is absolutely a gift. Yes. Yes, and the gift of being well, of having this sensitive body, so to speak, is that on an early age I needed to start to introspect on myself. So I couldn't pass myself actually, and I had to take care of my physical body, so I could not go too far out of line, and that also prevented myself from, for example, creating too much consequences somewhere in the outside world because of doing stupid things. Of course, I created consequences, but I created them inside myself. So that's what I still am walking through. Through the physical consequences, actually, because of the suppressions, for example, of the emotions within myself. So I would say from recognizing oneself in a high sensitive or just sensitive person. I like that term more, just sensitive. It is the tendency to introspect and also the tendency to have an oversight, to understand things. Yes, that's what one can work with. And from walking the journey, it is really to become more stable as well, physically as emotionally, and being able to, for example, have some more working hours, or having more interaction with different people. Also, when I'm not being understood, I'm also becoming more able to express myself, because I understand myself more and learning to understand, of course. So yes, that's really a gift, and also to become physical more stable, and how can I say, having less complaints. Yeah, it's really not cool to be physical not very well all the time, or to be tired all the time, for example. I still have periods that I am, but I know now that I can walk through, so I can make more peace with it. Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, that's like changing yourself on a emotional level, but also on a physical level, which is, you know, quite significant, to change yourself on that kind of level that people usually would feel like they can't really do anything about it, except for, you know, going to the doctor. So,
Yes.
Ingrid, were there any specific realizations or insights that you came to in this process of changing yourself and, you know, walking through that sensitivity? Like any realizations or insights which assisted you specifically to be able to transcend certain points and change this experience?
I think the insight that had the most impact is that, because from what I remember of how high sensitivity is explained, is that it is that one is sensing a lot what is going on around ourselves. So it is of course that reactions from on a physical level, on an emotional level, on different stimuli, external stimuli and internal stimuli, but it is more presented as that we sense a lot of others, for example, and it is less focused on how the sensitivity is actually the sensitivity within ourselves, within our own mind. So the sensitivity from our own reactions on the external stimuli. And that step has not been made in the books that I had read. I'm not sure how far it is now, but so that we're also not given tools to stabilize oneself, because it is not brought back to self. So one cannot really learn to take responsibility in it if there's not a really understanding of what actually it is, what we are reacting to, and what a reaction entails, and how we can work with that reaction. So it is more focused on sensing everything around us instead of realizing that we are mostly sensitive because of our own reactions to everything around us. So how I have seen it also for some years when I labeled myself as sensitive is also more as something special or something nice because one is sensing so much, but it doesn't explain what it really entails, and what the reactions entails actually, and what one is sensing. And it looks like we're sensing everything around us, like unlabeled, unnoticed, how can I say, undefined, for example, or like we can feel how another is feeling, and that's not true. It's only we feel how we are feeling. I'm not sure if I explain myself very clearly, but that was the largest shift for me, to really bring it back to self, that I'm not sensing how another is feeling, but I'm sensing how I am feeling within my reaction to another. That's, yeah. And when I start seeing that, then I have something to work with. Then I can empower myself actually, because that's something that I can stabilize myself within.
Cool. So basically what I understand from what you're saying is that, you know, one of the problems within being a sensitive person is that, you know, all this sensitivity in relation to your own emotions and your body is like placing yourself in the center of your own personal experiences, and so not actually seeing beyond that, which might be why it's so overwhelming, because you're like constantly only seeing like your experiences.
Yes, but also not knowing that you see your experience, but even project it on another. So I project my experience on another as if I can sense what another is experiencing. Like, for example, you come into the room with a mood, and I react to that, but I project my reaction on you, or you may not even come with a mood, but you just come into the room, but I see something in your face that I define as, oh, she's in a mood, and I experience myself in a mood for that, but I project it on you because I think I sense that you are in a mood. So it's the projections are not recognized actually within, and that is because of not have the understanding of how the mind function. So that is what really empowered myself, to learn to understand how the mind function actually. I hope I made myself a bit clear.
Yeah, it's cool. So it's like kind of understanding that you know, what you're seeing in other people isn't necessarily like, I mean, you know, what your mind tends to do is kind of take things personally and believe that another person's mood is like has something to do with you personally, which causes you then to react. And like,
yes, or even saying that I sense the other's mood. So you are in a mood, but I don't know if you're in a mood. I only know I am in a mood. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see what you mean. Like, so it's like within saying that this person is in a mood, you're not even kind of seeing that you're also in a certain reaction or experience in that moment.
Yeah, or that it is only my reaction or experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So let's see. So in our title for this hangout, we wrote down, that this hangout is about going from a high sensitivity to a physical sensibility. So can you maybe describe a little bit or explain what a physical sensibility is, as the solution for high sensitivity, and how you can transform high sensitivity into a physical sensibility?
Let's say the physical sensibility is the capacity to respond to our own emotions, to our own physical changes, movements, the things we see in ourselves, also the things that we see around ourselves, and responding to it instead of reacting to it. So responding more meaning looking at it and seeing in it what it is. What is the emotion? Where is it coming from? Are there thoughts coming up before? What is it related to? How can I support myself in this? Do I need to write it out because it is a pattern, for example, that's coming back more often? Where can I forgive myself in it so that I can come to an understanding of myself in this reaction? And in that, that's actually taking responsibility for my reactions. And then it becomes not a sensitivity in the mind, actually, but because I see more and more that the high sensitivity is actually also overreactiveness in the mind, in thoughts, emotions, and feelings, and bringing it back to a responding and a self-direction within the things that are coming up. And then, of course, one still has to work with the physical sensibility, because there is really a difference between all the bodies. One has a more sensitive nerve system than others. And if I understood well, they have done some investigations also that within the group of high sensitivity, there is a more sensible nerve system. So it can be that one has to support oneself physically in that. So, for example, with food, with lifestyle, taking enough rest, not overworking oneself. But that is more than it becomes a caretaking for oneself in who one is, and not so much reacting again to it or using it even as a specialness, but more, that's how a body is, and each body has its own instructions actually. And what I find interesting in that is for myself also to investigate, to walk, if it is possible to also even stabilize that nerve system, to make it less reactive, for example, so less sensitive and more sensible. So sensible that one before, for example, notice, okay, I better cannot take that food. It's not good for my body. Or sensible, like, okay, I need to stop now working and I need to go for a walk, or I need to take a rest. Or sensible, like, hey, I feel now my stomach is reacting, and maybe I was in an emotion or reaction. I have to take a look for myself. So that's more responding and directing it, at the in a sensible way. One can say, in a constructive way also.
Yeah. So in terms of walking this process from high sensitivity to physical sensibility, are there any tips or guidelines that you have to share with people who are in a position where they do feel very sensitive, and they may have labeled or defined themselves as being a high sensitive person based on books they've read or something like that? So, is there anything that you would like to for them?
Here I notice who are like me. I notice I do not really define still myself as high sensitive. That's interesting because
well, for me it's like, you're a bit more sensitive than most people, so it's just highly sensitive or overly sensitive or more high or higherly sensitive there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What I would suggest is to physically support oneself. So maybe one already, well, let's say find someone who can physically support within the area that one needs it, because it can be different for everyone where the physical sensitivity is playing out. It can be in the digestive system, but it can also be, for example, to sounds or to light, or well, it can be become visible in different parts. So the physical really needs some support in it, because if one is not supporting the physical, then it becomes very difficult to become emotional stable, because then one is emotional reacting to the physical, and the physical keeps on reacting to emotions. So then the circle keeps on going. So the physical needs some support, and I would recommend some natural medicines, so homeopathic, some food supplements, suitable foods, well, a therapist in that area, or more, or some treatments, or well, one can start looking for that, Googling for that. For the emotional stability, I really would recommend the Journey to Life, the Desteni I Process Lite, to get a better understanding of how oneself is functioning, actually, how we are all built up as human beings, how we consist of a mind consciousness system, of a body, and of a being, and how those three are interacting on each other, actually. And what emotions are, what feelings are, what thoughts are, what reactions are, and what projections are, what we are talking about. And that will definitely stabilize oneself if one is seriously start walking that and investigating and introspecting that area. And I would even say that if one is investigate oneself inside, then it gives also a greater understanding of the outside world and of other people, and it is easier to place oneself in the shoes of another, for example. And when one is walking through it for oneself, one can also become, for example, a point of support for others who are walking the same points. So let's support ourselves, and then let's support each other in this, to get to know ourselves, actually, and from there to get to know the world. And what is also interesting, because we have it here over about physical sensibility, yes, and it is not that only the sensitive persons are physical sensible or able to develop the physical sensibility. It's actually what everybody is already, but that we suppressed, we ignored it. And but the physical body that is sensible, and we can learn to more listen to our body, to ourselves. And then we do not have such difference between, for example, a highly sensitive or a not sensitive, or, well, then it's more working with the qualities that one is already, has given. We are all different by birth, but we all have the physical body that is a sensible organism, actually.
Yeah, that's a cool point. It's like, you know, sensibility in terms of how sensitivity can be used, and the differences that your own personal body has from other bodies, which is something we can all apply for ourselves in this world.
Yes.
Just that realization that, you know, we are all different and our bodies are all, you know, sensitive in terms of, you know, having their own unique kind of ways of processing things and, you know, existing things that we need individually.
Yes.
So that was basically the questions we had for this hangout. The Journey to Life information, the Journey to Life is something that you can go and just do a search on Facebook, and you will find the Facebook page where you will also find all the information you need in terms of the Journey to Life and how to walk it. So thank you very much, Ingrid, for being with us in this hangout.
Thank you too.
And so good evening, everyone. See you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.